Hello, Chris Gonerman, author of the Basic Fantasy RPG. Here to make a video I didn't think I was going to have to make. The executive summary is Bishop Madison Brooks, aka Gothic Church or Gothic Games, has resurfaced and is once again selling the Demons and Dragons rulebook, this time as a PDF on DriveThruRPG. This time around, the version of this Demons and Dragons game that is out there appears, according to the preview, to properly include my attribution, although they got the copyright years wrong. But in essence, they attempted to follow the license requirements this time. So I'm willing to stipulate at this point that their usage is probably legal. It is still dishonest and deceptive, in my opinion. In my opinion, it is dishonest and deceptive to do what they did. I'm going to get into this in a little more detail and talk about some issues with this. Basic Fantasy RPG has always been released under an open license. First under the Open Game License, and then with the latest release, the 4th edition, under the Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike license. All the 4th edition and all our new materials and some of our older materials that we are able to relicense because we can contact the authors for permission. We're switching to Creative Commons due to the OGL debacle, and that's been covered in a lot of videos and a lot of blog posts and a lot of discussion, and that's all out there also for anyone who wants the details. Some months ago, I was notified about Bishop Brooks and the Gothic Church, the Gothic Games, the website, and the fact that they were selling the Demons and Dragons game, this is just the Basic Fantasy 4th edition. The document that I laid out, the document that we as a community designed, in our fonts, in our layout, all of our text. Now, it's an open license. As I said, I'm willing to stipulate that this was done legally this time, not the first time. The first time my attribution was removed. My copyright statements were completely eradicated. And the only copyright statements in the book were for Gothic Church, and the only credit given for being the actual author was Madison Brooks. And there's a whole lot of details about that you can go back if you want to watch the videos and find out. We called them on it. And after a brief, contentious discussion on a social media site that was, I would describe it as a Temu version of Twitter, that was part of the Gothic Church online infrastructure, that whole site was torn down along with their wish.com version of Facebook, and other things on the site. Their main site, gothicchurch.org, was torn down. And their listing on Amazon went away. That was the main thing that was annoying me, was the fact that there was a listing on Amazon.com for this Demons and Dragons game. Just as an aside, there are no demons per se, or even remotely, in the actual core rules of Basic Fantasy. That doesn't mean we don't have creatures that could be described that way in our supplements, but the actual core rules don't have any demons. And Madison Brooks didn't change the contents of the book at all. The book is all our stuff. Now, all the art that had to be replaced was replaced. All the art that is licensed to me personally by the artists, which is the vast majority of the art in the book, was replaced with cheap knockoffs. Which sounds weird to say because all the artists who submitted art donated it. But it's still cheap in the sense that none of the art in Demons and Dragons was actually designed for Demons and Dragons. It's all freely available or cheaply purchased generic fantasy artwork. And Madison Brooks has used the same piece. This is a whole story. You can go back and look over and over again for different monsters, the same pieces of artwork to represent them. So how do you know which one looks like what when they all look the same? But that's all part of the previous discussion, and I really don't want to rehash it any more than I have to here. The important fact is that Brooks has come back and is now publishing those items as PDFs through DriveThruRPG. And as I say, this is now legal from the perspective that Brooks has at least attempted to follow the license and has more or less gotten it right. I don't think I could really reasonably attack them over the fact that they have my last copyright year is 2016 instead of 2023, which is what it should be for the 4th edition that they obviously copied from. But be that as it may, it's legal. But I would argue that it doesn't make sense for DriveThruRPG. That it's, even if these are legally shared documents, it doesn't make sense for them. Now, I want to talk about what open licenses are about, and here's my example: Odysseys and Overlords. The original Odysseys and Overlords game, I do believe they're rewriting it now, but the original one was based heavily on basic fantasy. They took the proven structure, the proven body of materials of our game, and changed the character races, I think some of the monsters. They rearranged parts of the game. They broke it up into a game master and player separate books. To meet their creative vision, they changed the fonts, they changed the layouts. It's not basic fantasy at all. Let me see if I can get my mouse to... Well, I'm not going to dig into it. The important thing is, Odysseys and Overlords used the authors of Odysseys and Overlords used the open game license version, the 3rd edition version of basic fantasy, in the way the open license was intended to be used. They took what we had and added their creative vision to it, excising those parts of our creative vision that didn't work in their world. That's what it's about. If you bought Odysseys and Overlords because you wanted to play in the world that they present, fantastic. You didn't get cheated. You got what you wanted. You got what you paid for, and they did what they were supposed to do. If you bought Demons and Dragons not knowing about basic fantasy, and then discovered later that you had basically bought a knockoff of basic fantasy that cost you $20 for the PDF, where our PDF is free, or more if print versions become available. I'm not sure at this point. None of the Gothic Games materials on DriveThruRPG have print versions. I've complained before about just exactly how slow it is to get prints into publication on DriveThru. They're probably waiting through the same process I have to wait through. So that's a factor to consider. It's probably why they're only available in PDF. But $20 for the PDF implies that the hardcover and softcover versions are going to be more expensive. They're going to cost more money than that. All of that, the $20 is more than what we charge for a hardback book, for a physical hardback book. We get up pretty close to it in some bookstores, but that's on them, not on us. We sell as close as we can to cost, making only a very small amount to cover expenses. Versus charging $20 for a PDF, I don't know what DriveThru's cut of that is, but I have to assume that Madison Brooks is getting at least $10 per copy. I don't really know how that works, since I've never actually sold a PDF through DriveThru, but I know some of you people probably have done that and probably do know. And the important thing is that one way or the other, you as a consumer would pay $20 for a PDF, where you could get the exact same textual materials for free from us. All of this is a bad look from my perspective. I think it would be a bad look for DriveThru. Compounding things, if you go to DriveThruRPG and you look up Gothic Games and you take a look at all the stuff that they have, everything that Gothic Games is trying to sell in PDF on DriveThruRPG is from somebody else. They're charging money for what is a free PDF from another source under an open license. There are at least I think several things that are based on the Cephas game. Cephas or Cepheus, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's a kind of a Traveler clone science fiction game. Out there. There is at least one book that is based on the 8-bit dungeon game system. There's nothing in Gothic Games collection that isn't a rebranded version of someone else's materials. I can't speak to whether any of the others are legal. That's not on me. I'm not the person. I'm not an interested party on either side. But again, I would think from the perspective of DriveThruRPG, this is a bad situation. People who buy these PDFs and pay money for these PDFs and then find out they could have gotten the exact same materials for free from another website, or possibly even through DriveThruRPG. I don't know. Ours is free through DriveThruRPG, so there you go. But they could have got the PDF for free somewhere. But they paid $20, give or take, for a PDF on DriveThru. DriveThru customers are not going to be happy with DriveThru over this when they discover that this is what's happened to them, especially the ones buying just a PDF because they're spending money for electrons. And they find out that those aren't original equipment electrons, as it were. I would think that, I know as a customer, I would be very unhappy to have this happen. So I would think this would be bad for DriveThru. I'm not suggesting they should do anything specific. I'm just pointing out that this is not an attractive situation. And I mentioned Odysseys and Overlord specifically, but there are a couple of situations I'm aware of where some of our basic fantasy project materials were used by others to provide material. There's I can't think of the name of it, and I'm sorry I can't, but there is a competing OSR game system where the author wrote the whole rule system themselves, and then came and took a couple of our adventures. I think BF1 Morgansford and JN1 The Chaotic Caves, and removed the art, replaced it, revised the adventures to be compatible with their game system instead of with Basic Fantasy. So they took the meat and bones of the adventure, basically, refitted it to work in their game system, and published them as supplementary materials for their game. And again, this is a legitimate use of the open license. They're not infringing on us. We allowed them to do that, and they did that. But in my opinion, even in a situation like that where all they're doing is changing the rules and keeping all of the actual artistic material, even in that situation, they're adding value. From the perspective of if you bought their game system, those adventures would work for you without modification. And that is potentially value to you as a consumer, as a customer. So I can't fault them for that, and I never complained about it. That was their decision, and it was their business decision. Whether it was a good one or not is on them, not on me. But they did us no harm by doing that. It was appropriate. It was acceptable to do things that way. But what Madison Brooks has done, it involves basically taking free materials, freely available materials off the internet, and putting their own name. This Demons and Dragons cover, I believe the current cover looks the same, has Gothic Church across the top and Madison Brooks down here. I said that the main GothicChurch.org website was torn down. And this is true, but evidently games.gothicchurch.org still works. And in fact, that is where my friend Thorin found the information about this game being available, about the Bishop having resurfaced with newly available online sales sites for the game. So anyway, I went out and looked there, and there is a page of supplementary materials for Demons and Dragons. It is a little hard to find because the link is broken. If you look, it's https://games/gothicchurch.org. That slash between games and Gothic Church should have been a period. Typo on their website, but if you change that to a period, it will take you to the page. The supplement page contains a bunch of cherry-picked supplements off of Basic Fantasy website. Some of them from our downloads area. The Gnomes supplement, for example. Some of them from the workshop or from the showcase showcase area. There is one that I believe is a showcase, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the author, but it is for a Starfinder-like version fantasy space game based on Basic Fantasy. I've never read it very closely. It's not a genre that interests me very much, but I gather it's fairly popular, at least among people for whom that genre is something that they like, and that's great. But all of those documents, many of them still have BF- at the beginning of their file names, and yet all of those documents have had their author revised so that Gothic Church is at least at the top, if not the only listed author, with no changes to speak of to the interior. Sometimes minor formatting corrections, and of course art has been removed and replaced with art that they have access to. They understood that part of the assignment fairly well. So the only exception is the very last one listed is a Hyborian Age campaign setting that is supposed to be compatible with Demons and Dragons, and therefore obviously with Basic Fantasy. That is from a third party, and I don't have the name in mind right now, but I did track it down. It is a third party, and it can be located and verified that it actually is someone else's work that's just been rebranded. There's almost no creativity in this. The only thing that can be said to be creative at all about the Gothic Games work is the curation. And in fact, if they had curated it in the sense that they had said, hey, this is how I'm running my campaign, if Madison Brooks simply came out as a game master and said, I'm running a game right now and I'm using Basic Fantasy RPG 4th edition, I'm using the gnomes and the Doc Alfar, and I'm using this and that supplement, we're running it in the Hyborian Age setting from here, had been honest and forthright about where the materials came from, and had simply curated them in the sense of collecting together what they felt worked together, for them. That could be entertaining. That could be kind of cool. But that's the only creative work that they've done, and in the course of doing this, they have filed off the serial numbers. They have, as much as possible, reduced the appearance that anybody else is responsible for these things and have effectively claimed them. And again, I can't speak to anyone else's legalities, but it looks like they're at least trying to follow the legal requirements of our documents. So I can't say that they're doing anything that is illegal. But it is definitely deceptive. There's no way I can construe it that it's not a deceptive practice. So I think that covers everything I wanted to say to the general public. I want to address this next part to Bishop Madison Brooks. Bishop Brooks, I'll use the honorific for you. I don't know what you expected to achieve here. I don't know what you thought was going to happen. I don't know what you think is going to happen. I cannot understand it. You have taken the works of multiple authors of multiple different open game projects. You have put them together into a collection as if they were your work. You've done nothing to make them different. You've done nothing to extend, expand, alter, revise, even to edit down any of the materials that you have taken over that way, other than changing the titles and potentially and the attribution of them. You've done nothing to them. You've created nothing new. That's it. You've created nothing new. Anyone who buys any of your PDFs is likely to become upset with you because they will at some point, someone may point out to them, many of them at least, if not all, will learn where those things came from originally and how much money they could have saved by buying them from the original sources. Potentially how much better the original sources actually were. You are presenting only a very limited range of Basic Fantasy Project works as if they were your own, where we have an extensive catalog. We have an extensive workshop on our website full of materials we're not ready to actually sell yet or distribute yet as completed works, but which are entirely usable. Lots and lots of materials, finished or unfinished, are available for Basic Fantasy. You've taken only a small portion of them and put them on your website. No, I'm not challenging you to take them all. That's not the point of this. The question is, what were you expecting? If your goal was to be me, first of all, you could have set your goal higher than that. I don't understand the point of what you're doing. No one will be fooled for long into thinking that you have created these things. The original authors of all the various different works that you share are already popping up in the comments on DriveThru, and you don't even have print copies available yet. You don't have a community. I have a community behind me, with me, supporting me, working with me, creating all of this wonderful stuff that we have. And people could argue whether it's wonderful, but I think it is. And all of the other creative people whose works you have aggregated into your collection, they also have friends, they have followers, they have fans, and possibly a community, but definitely fans behind their works. People who could not possibly be happy with you. I know you have made a lot of people in the basic fantasy community, very unhappy with you. Outright angry in some cases. I am probably the least angry person of all of them. So I have to ask you again, what did you expect to achieve? How did you think this was going to play out? Did you imagine that somehow you would find a substantial group of people who liked this material but were completely clueless as to where it came from? I find that hard to imagine also. So, I'm sorry. Again, I can't condone what you've done. I'm not going to tell people to report you for infringement because you're not infringing now, at least on my materials, and I can't speak to anyone else's. That's their problem, unfortunately, not mine, but I do hope they're all paying attention. But I can't condone what you're doing. I can't suggest that it was a good idea. It's not what the open license is meant to be for. It's not the point of using an open license. Certainly not that. But again, what you've done is, at least with respect to our products, is apparently legal, and I can't speak against it. But there's no way this is ever going to work out in your favor. There are already too many people who are angry with you. You can't succeed at this. I would be shocked if DriveThruRPG doesn't take a dim view of this, because they'll be the ones processing returns. They'll be the ones processing angry emails from customers who want to know why they got scammed on something they could have gotten for free, who are going to want their money back. And whether DriveThru wants to pay them or not, DriveThru is not going to be happy to have to deal with all those extra calls and complaints and emails and support requests and what have you. They're not going to be happy with that. No one who carries the works you are sharing, creating, and you're not creating anything, is going to be happy with it. There's no way I can see that this is going to work out in your favor. And I'm going to suggest again, the smartest thing you could do is stop. Withdraw your entries on DriveThruRPG before the mess gets worse. But it's ultimately your decision. You have to decide for yourself. Now, if you're the reason I'm having to fight infringement claims on Amazon, and I don't know that that's the case. I don't know if you're actually the person who put in the infringement claims, because Amazon's arbitration process is very opaque and I can't find out who did it. At least I can't yet find out who did it. But somebody put infringement claims in against the Basic Fantasy RPG 4th edition core rules. And I am right now, and have been for weeks, trying to deal with this, trying to prove to Amazon that I'm the author. I have arrived at a strategy that seems to be working, but it's time consuming because they allow commentary periods for both parties, and neither party can see the other's comments. I can't see what the person making the claims is saying, and they can't see what I'm saying. 2/3 of the infringement claims that I have faced so far have been settled. I have one still in progress, and I may have to go through more of them. I don't know. I really don't know how long this pain in my rear end is going to go on. If you're the one responsible for this, Bishop Brooks, I am irritated with you over that. I am angry with you over that. And I have to say, if that is the case, I'm probably not the only person angry with you over that. You are holding up the release of materials, holding up the release of things that I want to get out for our community to share through Amazon, which is our best source for distributing print copies of things. Anybody who wants a print copy, in most markets, in most regions, it is the least expensive way to get physical copies of our books. I'm not having trouble with DriveThru yet. I'm not having trouble with Lulu at all, but I say yet about DriveThru because the presence of your works on DriveThru does make me nervous. It does make me think the possibility that we may have contention there also. But again, if you're the one responsible for the infringement claims, I'm very miffed at you. I am very angry with you over that. But that right now is Schrodinger's anger. It's only real if you're the person who did it. If the person who's responsible for putting in the infringement claims against my works, against our works, against the Basic Fantasy Project's books on Amazon, would like to actually contact me and own up to it, I'd sure like to know who you are and why you think you can do that. Anyway, I think that covers everything I wanted to cover. I think I've said everything I can possibly say of any value in this. This is not a call to action to the community. At this point, I don't need any of you to do anything, except it wouldn't hurt if you kept your eyes open for other sources or other sites where the bishop might be reselling these materials. Again, not that I think that they're illegal, but I think the community needs to be kept aware of any such activity. But I'm not calling you to action to go out and attack anybody. I don't need anybody to hunt down the bishop, or virtually or physically. Please don't commit any crimes or anything like that. I just want to get the word out about what's going on with this ongoing situation. And I want everybody to know, where I stand on this. And I think I've covered that. Thank you all for your time. Sorry if I've run long on this. And hopefully I will have another video about the Basic Fantasy Adventure Binge out after Independence Day here in the United States, which is the 4th of July. Sometime after the 4th, I plan to put out another video about the Adventure Binge and try to get people moving, because we'll be down to under 2 months at that point. So we got things to look forward to. Thank you all for your time, and I will be talking to you later.